Now I do welcome and greet Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu to all of my students over here. First of all, I'm going to tell you about the topic cover statement of the lecture of the day. In the very first topic of the lecture of the day, you will learn about understanding the concept of an entity. And in the second topic of the lecture of the day, you will learn about how to represent the real world entities in object-oriented programming. In the third topic of the lecture of the day, you will learn about understanding the concept of a class and objects in object-oriented programming. That one is also known as OOP. That one is, how can you define an entity? Now I do tell you about the entity in detail. My dear, an entity can be a thing, an entity can be a person, an entity can be a place, an entity can be a concept over there in the real world. My dear,
Sir,
mobile,
house,
TV,
computers,
car,
laptop.
bicycle, motorbike, aeroplane, helicopter. These are the things over there. Okay?
Yes, sir.
And we call these things, these are the entities in the real world. All right, my dear? As I have told you, an entity can be a person over there. Mr. Behzad, you are being over there as a student. You are a person over here, and you are representing an entity over here. You are a person and you are a student as well over there. All right, my dear?
Yes, sir.
In the same way, an entity can be a place or an entity can be a concept. A course that you are being taught right now is the object-oriented programming. Yes, my dear? And
Yes,
this
sir.
subject or the concept has become what your entity. Are you getting, my dear?
Yes, sir.
The example of the person entity can be the employee, teacher, student, administrator, manager. Now, I do tell you more about the entity, my dear. An entity must have some properties or attributes in the real world. All right. And an entity must have some states or behaviors. My dear, and to make you understand about the properties or attributes of an entity and the states or behavior of an entity, I do tell you, my dear Behzad, a person can have some attributes or properties like name, height, nationality, religion, etc. Yes, Mr. Behzad,
Yes, sir.
you are being a person over there. You can have some properties or attributes. Okay, say your name, your height, your nationality, your religion become your attributes or properties for being a person. All right, my dear?
Yes, sir.
And to get understanding of the states or behavior, I do tell you, Mr. Bezar, that a person can have some states or behaviors like eating, sitting, running, walking, talking, etc. Mr. Bezar, you are
Yes, sir.
being a person over here. You can have some states or behaviors that you eat, that you sit, you run, you walk, you talk, you sleep, you read, you write. All of these things are known as the states or behaviors of you as being a person over there. All right, my dear? Did
Yes,
you
sir.
get Mr. Behzad?
Yes, sir.
Now, if your permission is there, do I proceed next?
Of course, sir.
Now, I do tell you about the real world entities. Object-oriented languages provide a framework for designing programs that represent real-world entities such as cars, mobiles, human beings, insurance policies, and so on. My dear, did you get?
Yes, sir.
My dear Behzad, each entity in the real world can have some features such as properties or attributes and states or behaviors. Example of an entity is a mobile over here. Now I do tell you about the mobile, that a mobile has some properties or attributes like name, model, color, and price, etc. It means the name of the mobile, the model of the mobile, the color of the mobile, and the price of the mobile are the properties or attributes of the mobile entity. Did you get Mr. Behzad?
Yes, sir.
And I do tell you more about the mobile. That one is a mobile might have some states or behaviors such as messaging, audio call, audio and video recording, etc. My dear, it means the messaging, video call, audio and video recording, all of these things are the states or the behaviors of the mobile entity right now. Mr. Behzad, did you get?
Yes, sir.
If your permission is there, do I proceed?
Sure, sir.
Okay. Now I do tell you another example of an entity, and the example of the entity is human being. Okay, Mr. Bezat, I do tell you about the entity human being. A human being can have some properties or attributes like hands, eyes, religion, nationality, color, height, and weight. A human being might have some states or behaviors such as walking, talking, eating, sleeping, singing. Many things are there. And all of these things are known as the states or the behaviors of a human being entity. Did you get Mr. Bezad?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Bezad, right now I'm going to tell you how to represent the real world entities in object oriented programming. My dear, the properties or attributes of a real world entity are actually its data. It means attributes or properties of a real world entity are the data of the real world entity. And I do tell you that data of each entity must be handled separately with language constructs such as variables, pointers, and arrays. Did you get Mr. Bezad?
Yes, sir.
The states or behaviors of a real world entity are actually its functions. And I do tell you, these functions of the entity must be handled separately with language constructs such as functions. Did you get Mr. Bezat?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Now I do tell you about the object-oriented programming. Mr. Behzad, object-oriented programming is a programming methodology that is associated with the concept of a class and its objects and various other concepts such as inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction, encapsulation, etc. Mr. Behzad, now I do
Yes, sir.
tell you about understanding the concept of a class and its objects. Over here, I do tell you about the class in the object-oriented programming. My dear, a class is a concept over there and it is a logical concept, and a class is a design of an entity which defines its core properties or attributes and states or behaviors. It means, my dear, we do represent an entity in the form of a class over there in the object oriented programming. And we do include the properties or attributes of an entity, and we do include the states or behavior of the entity within the class over there. A class contains properties or attributes and states or behaviors in the form of data members and data functions respectively. What does it mean, my dear? I do tell you. The properties or attributes of an entity are being represented as the data member in the class,
Data members
and the states or behaviors of the entity are being
as
represented
data function.
in the state of data functions in the class. Are you getting, my dear? These points are to be
Yes, sir.
noted over here. For example, my dear, the example of the class might be the human being over here. Okay, why do we take a human being as a class? Mr. Behzad, can you answer me? Why we have taken a human
Yes,
being
sir.
as a class over here?
Yes, sir. Because a human being is an entity,
Yes, a
and the
human
class
being
is the
is an
design of
entity.
entity.
Yes, thank you very much. Your answer is correct, my dear. A human being is an entity from the real world, and we do represent each entity in the object oriented programming in the shape of the class. And the example of a class is a human being. And the notable thing over here is that we do represent an entity in the form of a class. And a class is a logical concept, my dear. My dear, another example of a class might be the male class. All right? Did you get
Yes, sir.
why I have taken male entity as a class over here?
Because it is also an entity.
And we do represent each entity of the real world in the form of the class. Okay, we do represent an entity in the form of a class. And for a class, Mr. Bezad, a class is a logical concept. Okay, Mr. Bezad, another example of the class
Yes, sir.
may be the female. And the female is actually an entity from the real world. And we do represent each entity in the object-oriented programming in the shape of class or in the form of class. And notable thing again, I'm telling you, we do represent an entity in the form of what? The class. and the class is what? Yes.
A logical concept.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bezaz, right now, a very interesting thing that is going on. And this one is the last thing of the lecture of the day. That one is about the object of a class. The instance of a class is called an object which has a physical existence. Example of an object of a class is my name is Muhammad Shahzad and I am an object of a class named male. It means I am physically existed over here in the world, all right? And my name is Muhammad Shahzad and I am the object of the class and the name of the class is what? Male. The notable thing over here is that we do represent an object of a class that is physically existed over there in the world. Are you getting my idea?
Yes.
Now, I'm telling you another example of an object of a class. Fariha is a student and she is an object of a class named female. It means Fariha belongs to the class female and Fariha is an object of the class named
Yes.
female. Did you get Mr. Bezad?
Yes, sir.
We do represent an object of a class that is physically existed. All right. Allah Hafiz, beta.
Thank you, sir. Allah Hafiz.